and I was out in this beautiful field, and there were daisies and dandelions, like colors you've never seen, and music you've never heard. And when the angels would speak, the words and the music would come out at the same time. And I, this is emotional. I looked to my left, and there was this mountain of some sort, and I saw this beautiful light entity on this mountain, and it was pure love. I, I don't know how to describe it because we don't have it here. Hi, I'm Susan Grau. I'm an evidential medium, an author, a near-death experiencer. I wrote a book called Infinite Life, Infinite Lessons, all about my near-death experience, and I'm going to share some of that with you today. So, when I was 4.5 years old, I was locked in an unplugged freezer in a garage. And I actually had a very profound experience unexpectedly. I remember almost every detail. People ask me how, and I tell them, I'm sure there's a lot I don't remember, but what I do remember, I remember it in detail, kind of like if you were to watch The Wizard of Oz, or let's just go with that, The Wizard of Oz, and you remember the ruby slippers and the yellow brick road and all those other things as a child, because it had an impact on you. You know, the little munchkins dancing and all that stuff. And so, for me, that's what it felt like to me to have the NDE, is that it had such a profound impact on me that I couldn't forget, and I wasn't meant to. So I was playing with some boys, and I told me if I wanted to continue to play for it, I had to get up in the freezer in the garage and get popsicles for them. And quite honestly, it wasn't plugged in, but I didn't recognize that so young. And I don't think I cared. I wanted to play for it. So I was going to get up in that freezer regardless. So I got up in the freezer, and I was calling out, do you want this? Do you want that? What flavor? And I'm reaching up inside, facing inward. The freezer was on its axis. And I, um, I heard the freezer door close. And it was, at first, I wasn't scared because I thought I was in on a game, and I thought I was part of the game. So I didn't think anything. I just thought they'd open it and it'd be over. And then I heard the garage door thud. And then I realized, and it was really interesting because even well, I was tipping on 5, but even at 4.5, I knew that something was seriously wrong, and I was in big trouble, and I could die. And I didn't even know what die meant, but I knew that I could. And um, I remember screaming at the top of my lungs, and I was facing towards coils, and so no one could hear me. And as I was screaming, um, I was getting more and more hysterical. And after a little while, I heard these lights. I don't know how else to describe it. I saw lights, but I heard them, and they said, "Stop screaming." And I didn't. I kept screaming. And, I haven't listened my whole life. I've always done it my way. So I just kept on screaming. And then I heard, "Susie, we're going to get your mommy. Stop screaming." And it was really quite loud and pervasive. And I knew they were echoing it. And so I stopped because I wanted to know what this was. And the next thing I knew, I was taken from my body. Now, I don't recall being pulled from my body, so that's one of the memories I don't have. But I remember being at the bottom of this stairwell, and I was looking up these stairs, and I saw this, what I know today as a Greco-Roman room. Now, I'm going to describe this as an adult because as a child, I wouldn't be able to describe it this way. But I saw this, what I would call a Greco-Roman room, and I knew somehow innately that inside of this room was a circle, and or a well is what I called it. And I studied under Dr. Raymond Moody, just to preface it that. And he said to me not that long ago, "Did you ever think the well was the tunnel?" Because I kept saying, "I didn't see the tunnel. Why does everybody else get to see a tunnel? I didn't see it." And he said that, and it was like the biggest aha moment for me. It was like this flooring shock, and it was my tunnel. But that wasn't that long ago, so you can imagine how it still affects me today. So the minute I thought it, the minute I knew it was there, and there was this big open ceiling in this room, and it matched the size of the circle inside, and I was at the edge of that circle, and I was looking down into this well, and I saw all of this movement. It was I would call it like DNA. It was all joining together like one consciousness, but it was prayers and it was words. And I heard things like, my mom's got cancer. God, please don't let her die. And I'm turning 16 and I want a car. And my dad won't let me get a car. My mom won't let me get a car. And please make them get me a car. And just all these different desires of people on this planet. And it was all one consciousness. And I don't know how to describe that except to say it all went together, wrapped together like DNA, twisting and turning. And I looked over at my three lights, which I call my angels, and I asked them, where am I? And they said, you're in the room of heart's desires. And I said, do you answer all those? And they said, no, Susie, sometimes what people desire the most isn't good for them. Now, these aren't really rooms that I'm going to describe to you, but I have no other description for them. And in order for them to help me understand as a child, they called them rooms, but they're places, they're dimensional energy places. And I remember seeing this road, and I called it the Yellow Brick Road when I came back because that made sense to me because I had seen The Wizard of Oz, hence the comparison. Um, and I called it the Yellow Brick Road, and I saw pillars, and they were like pyramids at the beginning of these roads, and I saw humans, and they were moving slowly towards the center, and they were pulling from the bottom of these pyramids, these pavers, and I watched them paving their path, and it was bumpy and crooked and bizarre. And I saw them drop to their knees, and there were like three roads. Everything came in threes for me. Three roads, three everything, three angels. And I watch them drop to their knees and say, for the love of God, please help me. Somebody do something. Nothing's working out. Nothing's going my way. And I watch these beautiful entities come in, and they started picking the pavers up off the path, and the humans disappeared in front of me. And I watched them go back to the bottom of this pyramid and start putting the pavers back. I'm assuming all this is very metaphorical, and they meant it as metaphorical for me. And I asked, what are you doing? And they said, we are the pavers, you are not. All you have to do is walk it. And I watched them go to the top of these pyramids and pull from the top and start paving this beautiful path. And I said, how do you know if you're walking it right? Now, keep in mind, I was with the spirit world. I'm sure they put these questions in me so that I would have this knowledge later on to share. That's the only thing I can think of. But they said, we bless and block everything and make no mistake. You can get through a block, battered and bruised at best, or you can shift. What you try to control controls you. What you run from chases you. I've said that both of those sentences my whole life. I've never forgotten them. I didn't listen. I tried to control everything and I ran from things that scared me, but I still really wanted for people to hear those words. It was like in me. It was part of me. And later on in life, of course, I started to listen when I got older and I grew up and, got maturity. But it took a long time. And anyway, I'm doing my human experience like everyone else. And that's what they were trying to tell me is, you're going to do all these things too, but we want you to listen. And so there were some other things that happened in that room that were fairly profound. And I don't remember all the details, so I don't share a lot of it, but I remember bits and pieces dropping in on me. What they said to me is, if you see a wall shift, and if you see another wall shift again, and if you see another block or wall shift again, and before you know it, you'll see us paving your path. And I knew what that meant. Now, at least I do. And I think I did then, that, they were going to help me. That's what it meant for me. And now I understand that they are the pavers of the path. I flashed into another dimension, and it was called the Room of Knowledge. The reason I know that is I asked them. And I saw a family and more families coming, and I saw what we would call today virtual movement of books, but we didn't have virtual then. And I remember seeing these people looking, like having a conversation and looking in the eyes of what I would call guides or angels. And they were saying things like, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. And I can go through this. And when I go through that, my soul's going to grow and expand. And I didn't know what expansion meant, but I heard it anyway. And then I heard that these entities say to them, oh, that's a lot. I think that's way too much to go through on one journey. You've got many chances to do this. And I heard these groups, this little girl say, no, no, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. And I call that the lessons of hard knocks, the life of hard knocks. I really believe that we choose a lot of our journey, and that's what I saw. And yet we have free will. And this is how I know that, because they finally looked at these people and said to them, these spirits, and said to them, you do have free will. And they were gone. And I said, where did they go? I was in shock because I was having this, whole experience and it was gone. And they said they went to their next incarnation. No idea what they meant. I was about 13 years old when someone said to me, do you believe in reincarnation? And I said, oh my God, there's that word. And that's kind of been my whole life journey, is something I learned there or saw there or experienced there. And then if someone would say something or I'd see something and go, oh my God, that's what they meant. I had no clue truly what they were trying to say to me, except for when they were ready for me to know it. And they meaning the spirit world. I then just kind of moved into another area of the room of companions is what they called it. And it was just all our animals. And I was out in this beautiful field and there were daisies and dandelions, like colors you've never seen, and music you've never heard. And when the angels would speak, the words and the music would come out at the same time. And it was phenomenal. And I was overwhelmed by it. And I was me. I was that little girl, maybe because I was coming back. I don't know, but I was me, but I couldn't see me. And I was sitting in this field and I, this is emotional. I looked to my left and there was this mountain of some sort. And I saw this beautiful light entity on this mountain, and it was pure love. I, I don't know how to describe it because we don't have it here. And I remember thinking, I want to go up that mountain, but I knew I couldn't. I couldn't get up that mountain. And then I felt this like beautiful energy of light come flowing towards me it was pure love. I think I've spent my whole life looking for that on this planet, never found it. And I find love, but just not that pure love. And I was everything and I was nothing. I was perfect. And I remember this feeling of bliss, utter bliss. And there were all these animals running around. And so I know that our animals are there waiting for us because I saw it. I didn't see any of my animals. I have to say I hadn't lost an animal at that age, not an animal I loved and knew. We had kittens on our farm, but on our land, but I didn't, see them, not mine. Um, and then some other things happened, that went on, and I saw this beautiful. It was like a wall of glass. I'll call it a crystal because it was like a wall of glass. And on the other side of that, I could see movement, and it was humans or spirits moving through it, and they were moving rather rapidly, and I wanted to get in there, and so I tried to put my hand through it and I couldn't. And I realized today it's because I wouldn't have been coming back. That was truly the boundary of return for me. And I remember trying to put my hand through this wall, and I couldn't. There was no way to get in. I knew I wasn't coming back if I went through there. I don't know how I knew that, but I did. And I really wanted to connect to all of them, but I think they were the spirits that had actually completely left, and not coming back to this planet. I then looked to my right, and far in the distance, I saw this beautiful rainbowish looking cottage. And I watched a beautiful angel float towards me. I called her my light angel. And she was floating towards me. And all I could think of was, I want to float. I hope I can float. I want to float. And I felt this sense of pure love again, and safety and beauty, and everything pulsates, everything vibrates, even a blade of grass vibrates. It's like vibrating all around you, and you're vibrating. And it's this high vibration of energy, and just a high dimensional vibration. I don't know how to describe it in human words. Human words are really hard to give you what I experienced. And I remember her saying to me, it's time to go. Now, my mother was hearing the whole time, your baby's in the freezer, but she wasn't listening. And my mother had the gift of mediumship, and they had put her in an institution for a short period of time, and they had her medicated. And so she wasn't really trusting her intuition, which is so vitally important on this planet, to trust our intuition. They gave it to us for a reason, just like every other beautiful sense we have. And she said she heard it 3 times. Now, I remember this beautiful angel coming to me and saying, it's time to go. And she took me to this river's edge, and it went forever. And I remember her telling me we come through the water, and that I was going to have a lot of experiences in my life, and I needed to come back because I was going to help people, lots of people. But I too was going to go through basically a doctorate in difficulties. They didn't say it that way, but basically that's what I've been through. And like many of you, I have 2 brothers and a mother that died by suicide, and I just had a very difficult journey. And everything I've ever gone through has taught me how to help others, which is what I do. I have a license that I'm a therapist, and I deal with grief and addiction, and I have my doctorate in divinity, and I work with children who have near-death experiences. So I've spent my life helping people, is my point. And that's what I was meant to do, and that's what they shared with me. And I didn't know if I wanted to go back to being Susie in that freezer. I was afraid. I was afraid of being in that freezer if I went back, because I knew what going back meant. But they told me I was going to help people, and they told me everything would be okay. And they told me I was going to see my mommy. And, honestly, the whole time, whenever she would come to mine, which was rare, I want to say that, I wanted to see her. So that was a good incentive. And the next thing I knew, I was moving into this water. It was clear and beautiful and perfect. It was the perfect temperature. It was the perfect everything. And they explained to me as I was going through this, we're birthed by water and we return in water, which I thought was really interesting because, later on I realized, yeah, we are birthed in water in the womb. So the next thing I knew, my mother was coming out of the house, and I could see my mom during this process. However, this is her story now. She was coming out of the house, and she saw the garage door was closed, and she knew I couldn't open it, and there were no garage door openers. And what I recall her saying to me, and I don't know if it's perfectly accurate, but she thought about turning around and not going in. And then she made the decision that, she had to trust this intuitive hit. So she opened up the garage door, and she went over to the freezer, and she opened it, and I was facing inward. And when she turned me around, she said I was ashen with blue tip fingers. And she went to go get help because they didn't have cell phones. And she let go of me, and she ran to go get help. And I fell out, because the only thing that was in there was shells. And I fell out. And I hit my chin and cracked it open. I still have my little scar underneath there. And I took a breath. So once I felt better, and I got my wherewithal of where I was and what was happening later on, and it took a while. It took a couple of days for me to feel normal. I could see spirits. They were everywhere. And I thought they were the boogeyman. I did not connect the dots. And I wanted them to go away. So I'd cover my head and say, go away, go away, go away. And they didn't. And throughout my life, they visited me and given me information. That's how I became a medium. My whole experience there was ethereal, yet more real than here. And in the room of heart's desires, I watched a man getting help. It was a spiritual being, but it was a man, and I asked him why he was walking all funny like jello. And I asked him, why are you walking like that? And he said, I'm not used to my ethereal body. I had no clue what he meant. But when I got older, I understood, because I kind of felt that way. I felt like I was jello-y, and I wasn't me, but I was me in my thinking and in my understanding, my ability to understand. Now I know they gave me a stronger ability to understand while I was there, but not the clarity I have now. Um, and so I've been there a couple times. So later on in life, I had an experience where my brother passed, and I had a shared death experience with him. And he kept coming to my room, and over and over and over. And he died by suicide on my birthday. And so he was talking to me, trying, and I didn't want to hear it. I didn't even know it was him. I was in so much shock. But by the third day, which is when the next morning they found him, I let him come closer, and I said, Terry, is that you? I finally got it. And he pulled me literally out of my body, and I went on the journey with him. And I saw the yellow path again, and I saw it lighting up, and I saw beauty, and I saw the angels, and they were singing, and the words and the music were coming out at the same time. And when they would open their mouths, and people ask me, do they have wings? And I say yes, but they glowed like 6 feet out from themselves. And so that could have been the wing, that I was seeing. That wasn't actually a wing. But to me, it was wings. And I got to see so much again and understand our journey and why we're here, because my brother explained it to me again. And then he said to me, I have to leave now. When I asked him, have you seen God? And he said, I have to go. And I said, no, wait, have you seen God? And he said, I have to go now, but I'll always be with you. We are always together. We are always one. I'm never really gone. Hence mediumship. Um, and then there was more to that, and I popped back in my body, and I was awake. And I said to my husband, I woke him, and I said, I can go to sleep now. And he looked at me like I was a nutcase. Yeah, go to sleep. Why are you waking me to tell me that? Because I couldn't sleep. But another experience, I had a brain tumor. And when I was in surgery, I remember having the experience again. And it was so profound that I literally, when I came to in the hospital room, it was pitch black. And I know it's not pitch black on the other side, but it was so profound that I said out loud, am I dead? Did I die? And I had a friend that was there in the corner, and it was so pitch black I couldn't see her. And she said, well, I certainly effing hope not, because if you're dead, it means I'm dead. And I just started laughing, and I recognized that I had had another experience. And I remembered seeing the angels and them talking to me. And, some people call them angels, and some people call them other entities, and some people call them other dimensions. And, it doesn't matter what we call them, they are the same thing. So I want to say that. And, and so I remembered all of that, and I wrote it down, and they were teaching me again about my original experience. So I've had these beautiful abilities that they gave me to connect into the other side, which is phenomenal. And to understand who people are. I didn't listen. I got myself in with bad people all the time, just like everyone else, narcissistic people and all the other things. But I knew who they were. I just didn't listen. And I still do. But at the end of the whole experience of all my experiences, I recognize why I have the mediumship skill. And it's simply to help people recognize that they actually do exist, that they're not gone, that they vibrate next to us and with us at all times. And people go, oh my God, can they see what I do privately? And can they read my mind? And I think I'd lose mine if I thought they could. So the answer is no. They're interested in love. That's what they're looking for, is the love. So if you've lost a loved one, I want to encourage you to step into the energy of love, high vibrational energies. Love. Grief is the lowest vibrational energy outside of hate. So they can't connect with us easily. That's why we don't see them, and other people do that, know us and tell us they had a dream about them, etc. So I really encourage you to step into that higher vibrational energy. Turn on some music. It's very high in vibration. They created it there. It's for healing. You ever notice music gives you all these feelings of sadness and joy and happiness and memories. It takes you where it wants you to go, not necessarily where you want to go. They created it for that purpose, for to heal us. And they shared with me something that I think is profoundly important, and that is your soul is never damaged. It's never broken. It is the vine to the divine. And it is their way of helping you heal and survive and go through this journey, knowing they're with you, beside you, around you, in you, through you. And so that's where you turn. We like to turn to our heads, like, what does my head tell me I should do? And they taught me to turn to my soul. What does my soul say? Because your soul is always okay and safe. So if it was damaged and your soul was damaged, my soul was damaged, we'd never get any help. There'd be nowhere to turn while we're here. So they've created us to have that. So that's the story of my journey. There's so much more in depth to it, but to share it all would take me hours. But that's kind of a in the nutshell. Thank you for listening to my journey. I really appreciate you all.
Thanks, Susan. That was so, yeah, I really love, I actually just love the cadence of your voice. It was very, very soothing, and I'm grateful to be a witness to your journey. And I'm wondering, because you mentioned it, can you share a little bit more about souls who commit suicide? What happens to them?
Um, they are loved. I want to say that there is no damaged souls. And yes, people, humans, evil is in the minds of man. Choices are in the minds of man. I want to say that. And suicide is not an evil act. It's a painful act. They want out of their pain. Why would anyone, would you punish your child for doing something that to be out of pain? Why would the spirit world want to create punishment because we're in so much pain? This is a hard journey. And so I want everyone to know, having the suicides in my family, the one thing that I am absolutely certain of is that they are loved and they are guided and they are protected and they are nurtured. They are not punished for that. And they are in the safest place and they are happy and joyful and healed. They are healed. And so I want to say that. Now, I don't encourage suicide because we have a journey to do here. And we need to make sure we're doing it because we're put here for that. Do they have to repeat? Probably. Do they have to relearn? Probably some of the things that they didn't learn. But that's not a punishment. That's a free will choice. We want to learn. We want to grow. We want our souls to expand. But suicide is not ugly. Suicide is pain. The only problem with suicide, if I might share this, and I talk about this in depth in my book, I go in depth, obviously, because I've had so much of it. We don't get rid of the pain when we cross, we transfer it to the people here. And that is the hardest part. We don't know we're going to do that. But I know the pain of my brother and my mother, both my brothers and my mother, and I have two friends who died by suicide. I I I felt that pain. And I carried that pain for so long until I could heal. So, in that way, it is destructive. So, we don't want to do that to the humans here that have to live with it. But over there, they're safe and sound.
Thank you for sharing that. Suicide has also touched my life. Both my parents committed suicide, so I'm always really interested in hearing spiritual people's viewpoints on what happens when souls cross over by suicide. So, in just to play like dual advocate here while I'm asking questions, to say that they're loved, they're accepted. So let's say that somebody is suicidal, and then they hear you say something like "you're cool" after. Like, what's the point of staying?
Well, because you have a journey. They're not thrilled that you're doing that. They're not going to punish you, but they don't want you to do that. You are here to learn and you're here to grow and expand your soul source. This is the place of experience. And everything that you go through is a greater experience for your soul. And so you want to experience everything you possibly can, and that includes pain. Let me tell you, I have been in the darkest of places. Obviously, I was suicidal till I was 36. I wanted to go back there. I didn't want to be here. Um, And I worked through it. I walked through that pain, and I grew and I became more because of it, not in spite of it. So they encourage us. They want us here. They're not happy. And we do have to do healing work there. We don't just get there and everything's beautiful. We have to heal, and we have to feel the effects. When I said it's transferred to others here, we have to feel that, because when we go through our life review, we feel what our behaviors have created for others as though we're them. And I certainly don't want to feel what I had to feel because of something I did, what I had to feel when my brothers and mother left. So it's important to understand that there are consequences for everything, but the consequence is what we create for ourselves. They don't create it for us. I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, actually, it filled me with a lot of hope. And, again, like just love getting another person's perspective by somebody that this topic has touched. So, and thank you for your bravery to talk about it, because it's a very uncomfortable, stigmatized topic. And you're a vision of hope, like you have managed your grief and found purpose in your pain. And I'm really grateful for you coming and sharing your story. I know that as experiencers, we have so many amazing mystical experiences that are evidence for us. So I'm wondering if maybe you can share another piece of evidential proof that there's something greater out there.
Absolutely. So when I do readings, um, and when I teach both, when I do readings, there's like things that I can't know. I mean, they're so beyond my ability to know, like their last conversation. Or I had a mother come to me who lost her little girl, and her little girl started singing a song that they had sung together that she has told no one. It's not on social media, it's nowhere. And she was overwhelmed when I started singing. I said, I don't know this song, but I started singing it, and she started crying. And she said, the only thing I asked my child to do if she was truly here was to sing that song. So those kinds of things happen all the time, and they're mystical, they're magical. People go, how could you know that? And giving away my secret, my trade secret, I say to myself, how did I know that? And it's not because I am special, it's because they tell me. They are there. People say, why can't I feel them all the time? And I tell them, if you don't even notice the flowers that you're walking past, I do this with my students. They come to my office and I'll say, what flowers, what color were the flowers you walked past on the way to my office? And their all heads go down. I don't know. I didn't look. And I say, how would you know if a loved one's walking beside you then? Because if you're seeing it with your eyes and you don't know it's there, how will you know if you're not present? Life is in session, be present. The mystical things that happen to me is I'll get woken up in the middle of the night and they'll say, wake up, I just died. And I'll be stunned out of my sleep, and they'll say, this is my name, this is what happened. You're going to hear so and so sister's brother's friend died, and 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 it was me, and they think I did it on purpose and I didn't, or vice versa. And please tell them you saw me. I get those kinds of wake ups all the time. Or I'll be in a restaurant and I'll see a mother behind someone, and that person, for some reason, decides to bump into me. And then they'll look at me and say, I know you have something to tell me. How could they know that? I'm in a restaurant, right? And I'll say, well, I saw your mother behind you, and she said her name's this, and this is what happened. Those are mystical, magical things. It's mystical to hear a voice say, don't go down that street, isn't it? It's mystical to hear them relate to us things that we need to know, like that person's not safe, don't go in that elevator. That person is filled with love, go talk to them. We hear this stuff even when we're resistant. We just are resistant. So there's always magical things happening around us. When I teach high level metaphysics. When I teach, my students get to see them. They come into the room, they come in as the beautiful orbs that they are, and they form like almost a heavy mist, and it's damp. It's crazy mystical, yet my students get information from them. I was talking to someone the other day and I said, I keep seeing a ball of cotton candy around you. I can't shake it. It's so strong, and it's pink cotton candy and it's big. And she said, oh my God, the day before my daughter died, she bought me cotton candy and I took it home and I couldn't eat it all. So I put it on a piece of plastic on the counter. And And she's one of my students too now. So that's really interesting. And she said when she passed the next day, I folded that, it melted into it a little bit and it was sticky. And I folded that plastic up and I put it away in her room. How could I know that? These are mystical experiences. They're doing that with you all the time. It's not because I'm a medium. We all have the ability to hear them that way. It's just, are we listening? Life is in session. And if you're present, you will experience the mysticism of the afterlife.
Oh, that is so cool. Thank you
It
so much. I
is.
got goosebumps when you were sharing that story about your clients. So amazing, so beautiful. I've really enjoyed listening to you, and I want to see if there's anything else that you'd like to share to feel more complete about our time together.
I think I just want people to know that you're here for your sole purpose at the end of the day is self-love. And you are loved by them. But look how hard it is to love ourselves. I can look at other people and see all the beauty in them. And I have to work every day to love who I am. And by my free will choices, I decide that day if I've done good. So I want to suggest to people at the end of every day that you have an evaluation moment. And anything that needs to be looked at, you look at so that you can like yourself, so that you can have self-love. I go to bed at night and I say, what did I do today that I'm not proud of? And I try to clean my side of the street up the best I can so that I am a better spirit. And so that, and I don't do it perfect. Let me tell you, I am not perfect. I make all kinds of mistakes. I'm having a human experience. So I have to do that every night too. But I also want to encourage you to invite them in. And when you get up in the morning, ask them to join you on your day. You have free will here. Yes, things are planned. So it kind of looks like this. You have a contract to be married, you'll be married. Who you marry, how long you're married, the kind of marriage you have is all free will for your soul to expand. If it was all a planned event, there'd be no expansion. You wouldn't even need to come here. We come here for the experience of understanding the different choices we have, the different doors we can open. And you can go in a door and turn around anytime you want. You have that free will. So if you go in a door you're unhappy with, turn around and go in another door, because that's how you learn to love yourself and take care of yourself. And you are loved. And you are love. That's my message.